Hi, my name is Mike Shabanik. I'm the product manager for the accessibility technologies in Mac OS X. Thanks for joining me today. Every Mac includes a range of built-in features to address those with vision, hearing, motor skills, and learning disabilities, and all of these come standard on every new Mac. In this session, I'll be focusing on those who need dramatic screen magnification to make the computer easier to see and use. To address this, let me introduce you to one of the most popular features on the Mac called Zoom. I'm going to open System Preferences and then click on the Universal Access item. Here I can find the Zoom controls for enabling and disabling Zoom. Now with Zoom turned on, I can use keyboard shortcuts or I can use the scroll wheel on the mouse. In this case, I'll use the scroll wheel by holding down the Control key on the keyboard. As I hold that key and scroll the button, I zoom in, and I can zoom back out just as easily. Now, when I'm zoomed in, the screen will follow the cursor, making it easier for me to find and read and even interact with things on the screen. I'll zoom back out for just a moment, and we'll explore some other options of Zoom in the Options button. I can adjust the way Zoom follows the cursor with these three radio buttons. So for example, if I have difficulty panning or I have a really small field of vision, I can change the behavior so that the mouse arrow always stays near the center of the screen. In this case, when I zoom in, the arrow will always remain in the center of the screen, and as I roll the mouse around the table, it's the image on the screen that moves to bring it into focus where the mouse is. This is a great option if you have a narrow field of vision. As I near the top of the screen, the Mac is smart and it will actually break loose and allow me to move that arrow all the way to the top if I need to access menus, for example, the Help menu or the Window menu, or again, move back to the items that I might be interacting with in the middle of the screen. Let me zoom back out here and take a look at another option. This is only when the pointer reaches an edge. In this case, as I zoom in, the screen will stay steady so it's easier to see what's on the screen. There's no movement and there's no motion sickness. As I reach the edge of the screen will automatically pan with me, so I never have to worry about setting the screen up or using scroll bars or arrows to get the screen to display what I'm focused on. I can just focus on where the mouse cursor is focused, reading each item, pointing to it, and changing my zoom ratio as needed just by scrolling the wheel on the mouse. Now we also have an option where Zoom can follow the cursor as you're typing. This is incredibly handy if you do a lot of text editing. So let me launch the text editor, Text Edit. Let me zoom in, and I'll begin typing. Notice how Zoom follows as I type. This way you can spend your time focusing on typing and not focusing on zooming. We also have options for setting the minimum and maximum zoom level so you can set those specifications to suit your specific needs. For example, I can set the maximum to 8 and the minimum to 4. And then as I begin magnifying, the screen will immediately move to that minimum magnification and will never go past the maximum. I can also turn on a preview rectangle that gives me a sense of what will appear in that magnified window when I do turn on magnification. So if you're setting the system up for someone else, you can have a sense for exactly what will appear in that window and how big that window will be. Then when I zoom in, I know exactly what I'm going to see in the middle of the window. Well, there are many applications that also provide specific features that help low vision users. Let's take a look at a few of those. The first one I thought I would point out is Calculator. Now, Calculator is just exactly what you'd expect. You can press keys on the keyboard to add, subtract, multiply, and divide. But what you might not have noticed is this speech menu in the Calculator menu bar. I'm going to turn on Speak button pressed, and I'm going to turn on Speak Result. And now, even if I have difficulty seeing the keys, I'll actually be able to hear each key as it's pressed.
9, 4, 5, times 6, 5.
And of course, I'll be able to hear the result.
Equals 51311425.
This is an incredibly useful feature. It's a simple one, but one I think you might enjoy. We can also use a feature in the address book. This is where we keep all of our contact information. Here we have another simple feature that's easy to use but can be dramatically impactful. I'll just click the label Home next to the home phone number, And we have an option here that pops up called large type. And when we mean large type, take a look. This, of course, just makes it easier to read what's on the screen. And gives you just a simple example of how we've improved magnification in different applications as well as overall zooming for the entire screen. Safari is another application that provides specific features to enhance the computer for low vision learners. This is the accessibility page on apple.com. Now, there are keyboard shortcuts in the View menu here for zooming in and zooming out the Safari window itself. This is in addition to the zoom feature I just demonstrated. I can use the keyboard shortcuts or choose the menu here. Let's try the keyboard shortcuts Command plus and Command minus. Notice as I press each key, I can change the zoom ratio for this page. Also notice too that we're zooming not only the text, but also the images and re-rendering them very crisply at high resolution to make them even easier to see. Safari includes some additional preferences in the Advanced tab to allow us to change the minimum font size used to render a page. So for example, if I have trouble reading fonts that are smaller than 10 point, I can set the minimum to 11 or 12 or 14, and Safari will always render the smallest print in that minimum font size. We also have an interesting feature here called Style Sheet. Now imagine a television set where you can change the contrast or the brightness or the tint. That only changes the way that the image looks on your television set, but you don't have to call the broadcaster to change the broadcast. Everyone else sees it as it's presented. In the same way with Safari, we can adjust the way the page looks on our computer using a style sheet, which is really just a template for describing how that page ought to be rendered. So for example, I'll choose one here that's been created called White on Black 48. And what it will do is change the way this page appears on my computer to be 48-point font, white on black, single column, so that for me, it's much easier to navigate and to read the text on the screen. Now you can create as many style sheets as you like. You can trade them, you can download them from the internet. They all use standard HTML, so they're very easy to create. And you can take advantage of all the HTML features to change the way that that page appears on the screen. Well, I hope you've enjoyed learning about some of the accessibility features built into Mac OS X and Mac OS X applications as much as I've enjoyed sharing them with you. If you'd like to learn more about the accessibility of Apple's products, I invite you to visit Apple on the web at www.apple.com/accessibility. And you can send email feedback to Apple to accessibility@apple.com. Thanks for joining me today.